You can fix a bug in your React Native application and get it to your users in minutes without going through an App Store review. No new build, no waiting days on Apple. And this isn't a hack. React Native's architecture is what makes this possible, and Apple allows it. The rules permit JavaScript updates as long as you don't change what your application fundamentally does. Google allows it too. This is why many React Native developers use over-the-air updates to deploy quick fixes and small features in minutes. The tool we're using is Bitrise CodePush, and they are kindly sponsoring this video. Bitrise has been in the mobile space for years, providing services like CI/CD for building, caching, testing, store releases, and more. They recently added support for over-the-air updates, and that's what we're here for. If you're already on CodePush or any other solution, moving over is easy. And if you've been meaning to add OTA updates to speed up your releases, this is a great place to start. Their free tier is genuinely generous, with up to 100k monthly active users. And on top of that, they gave me a code, Beto25CP, for our community, which gives you 25% off for the CodePush Pro plan, which goes up to 5 million monthly active users. By the end of this video, you'll understand how over-the-air updates work, how to add them to your React Native or Expo app, and you'll ship a real update to a real phone in minutes, not days. Let's get into it. Before we wire everything up, here's how over-the-air updates work. Basically, a React Native application is 2 layers. There is the native binary, the thing that Apple actually installs, and inside it, a JavaScript bundle, which is where most of your application lives. Your screens, your logic, your styling. An over-the-air update swaps that JavaScript bundle, and the native layer never changes. That's basically the mechanism. And it's also the limit, because JavaScript changes ship over the air. For example, a typo, a color, a broken layout, a small feature, anything native, a new native package, a new permission, an SDK upgrade still needs a real build and a trip through the store. So this is exactly what Apple allows. You are updating your application, not replacing it. Their rules permit interpreted code like JavaScript as long as it doesn't change your application primary purpose. Use it for quick fixes, small features, and you're completely in the clean. And everything I'm about to show you works the same on Android with Google Play. Alright, let's start by setting up our Bitrise account. You can visit the link in the description. Go ahead and create an account. You should see something like this once you create your account for the first time. I already have a project here, but if you don't have one, just follow the steps that I'm going to do. You can go to the releases sections here on the left. Then you can create a new application, and in here you can give it a title. So for example, I'm going to be using my AI tattoo application, which is actually a real application in the App Store right now. So I'm going to call it Inkigo Video, just to show you how you can do this. And then you can select the operating system. By the way, you can do this for iOS and Android. I'm gonna be doing it just for iOS to make this video simple. But if you want to target both platforms, you need to do this twice, one for iOS and one for Android. Then we need to provide the bundle ID for our application. So you can grab that from the app.json. Then let's put this in here. Finally, you need to select the framework, which is React Native in this case. Then press next. In here, you can create a new project and press add application. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this since I already have my application. This is how it looks once you create it. Then the next thing that you need to do is go to the new CodePush option here. Now, we need to set this up. We cannot see anything here. This is the place where you're going to be able to see your deployments and updates. Now, we need to configure this. Let's go to the configuration tab down here. And in here, click on deployments. This is something important. So when you are shipping over-the-air updates, you ideally going to have development, stage, and production deployments. So in this case, I created 2 deployments, one for development, one for production. You can create as many as you want. So for example, staging or anything that you need, and then just press create. This is going to create a new deployment. Now, the deployment key, it's basically an ID that we're gonna need in the future. So save yours. We're gonna need it in a moment. You can always delete deployments like this one. The next thing that you need to do is go to the settings. And in here, you'll find general settings and click on workspace slug. this is going to be actually an ID that we are going to need to configure over-the-air updates in our code base. So go ahead and copy this slug. I'm going to be referencing this guide from the Bitrise docs, which basically walks you through everything step by step. So if in case you get stuck, you can reference the documents, and I'm going to leave it in the description. You can check it out as well. You can quickly see, by the way, that for free, you get 100K monthly active users, which is really nice. But if you need more, just use the promo code. The link is below. But we need to configure this first in our application. So I'm going to go to the configuring your app for CodePush. And first we need to install the CodePush Next React Native CodePush package. So let's copy the name of this package. Go to your project. I'm going to close this for now. And you can install the package using any package manager that you're using. In this case, I'm using Bun. Just hit enter. After this, you should see it in your package JSON. At the time that I'm recording this video, this is the version. And then we need to configure our application. So if we go back, you're gonna find the iOS setup options. If you are not using Expo, you're gonna need to update your app delegate in some native code. Similarly for Android, you need to do the same. So just follow this process. Since I'm using Expo, this is gonna be a bit easier because we can simply copy the plugin here. So copy the entire plugin. Go to your app JSON, and down here I have a bunch of plugins in this application, but at the very end I'm going to add, just to show you, this is inside the plugins here. This is an array, so you have your plugins, and then at the very end I'm going to add the plugin for CodePush. So this is how it looks. Now, since I'm using iOS only, I'm going to pass just the iOS object, and we need to specify the CodePush deployment key. This is going to be the deployment key that we created before. Now, like I said at the beginning, you usually will have multiple environments. And for that, you can change your app.json to be an app.config.js or TS file, and then swap the deployment key according to the environment. Since this is just a quick tutorial, I'm going to be using the production one directly here. And then we also need the CodePush server URL. If you remember, I told you to copy the slug from the settings. This is my slug, okay? This is just, again, so that everyone is on the same page. This is the number that I copy from here. So it's gonna be https and then your slug and then codepush.bitrise.io. Hit save. So for Android, you would do the same, basically similar values, but the deployment key is going to change because it's a different project on Bitrise. All right, so let's remove this for this example. Once you have this, you need to pre-build the application. So you can run npx expo prebuild. I'm gonna say platform iOS with the clean flag, and then compile your application. Okay, so I already did that. The application that you can see here on the right already has the configuration installed. I rebuilt, I recompiled, so I'm just gonna start the server, shake my device just to make sure that we are on the latest. I'm going to refresh. And now we are good to start setting up the updates in the code. After the configuration is done, you can go to the entry point of your application. So in my case, I'm using Expo router. It's gonna be the layout inside my app folder. This is the main entry point of my application, and you can start importing the package. So in this case, CodePush, and you can directly start accessing the methods like this. If I say dot, you're gonna see a bunch of types that we can use, functions, and stuff like that. So we need to actually wrap our application so that CodePush can access it. So I'm gonna go to the entry point of my application, which is this export default function root layout. This is basically the entry point of my app. And what I'm gonna do is, instead of exporting this component here, I'm going to remove the export, minimize this, and then I'm gonna create a new export default. And then let's code CodePush, and then we can pass some options. So we can create an object called CodePush options like this, and then pass it in here as the first parameter. And then we can close parentheses, open parentheses again, and then pass the actual entry point, which is my root layout. What this is basically doing is creating a higher order component and wrapping my entire application with CodePush configuration. and the code push options that I'm going to define here. So let's do that. So I'm going to set a couple of configurations. First of all, the check frequency. This is going to be how often we want to check for updates. Now, since this is a tutorial, I want to do this manually so that it doesn't update automatically, but you can actually change this. So don't automatically check for updates. So I'm going to do that manually. But if you want to check for updates automatically, you can set this to on app resume or on app start. Right now, I'm going to leave it to manual, and then the install mode. So immediate basically means that once the user press and checks for update and we detect that there's a new update, we are going to restart the application immediately and apply the update. So once you have defined the code push options, you can just pass them here directly, hit save. Okay, the entire application refreshed, and now we should be good. So what I'm going to do here is just navigate to the settings screen, and I'm going to add a new button to check for updates in the settings section. So now I'm going to use this button to actually fetch the update if we have one and apply the update. So to do that, let's go to the very top of the file, and I'm going to start by importing CodePush. Then after that, I'm going to create a couple of states variables just to handle the loading state. So we're going to need to download the update, and I'm going to show like a progress of the update being downloaded. And then, so to track that state, I'm going to create these two variables. Now let's actually use this label down here. I'm going to be labeled like this. And if I scroll to that section, we can see the check for updates. So right now it's not doing anything. So let's create a function called handle check update. And this function, I'm going to create it up here. Okay, so I'm going to create my function below my state variable so that we're all on the same page. Oh yeah, and it's a good idea to import CodePush. It's gone now. And the name. Okay, so this is going to be my function handle update. Now I have a couple things here that I'm going to explain. First of all, I want to set the BC, meaning loading, to true as soon as the user presses the button. And then we're going to call codepush.sync. And this function actually is going to basically take some options for how we want to handle the check of the update. And if we find an update, how we want to handle the state and downloading it, okay? So first of all, we're going to pass the first parameter, the object, with the install mode, how we want to install this update in case we detect one. So my update is going to be installed immediately. As soon as I detect something, I'm going to apply it and refresh the application. Now the second parameter is going to be the status callback, and this maps to each stage to the button label, okay? So basically we're setting the label based on the current state of the update. This is a great function so that you can present feedback to the user. So this is setting the label, but you can do other things like progress bar and stuff like that. So we have state for checking for update, downloading the package, installing the update, update installed. This is now setting it to restarting. Then once we're up to date, we should be able to see check for updates again. So nothing. And if we have an error, we're gonna set the label to check for updates as well, but we're setting the loading state to false. Now finally, we're getting this callback with the received bytes and total bytes, which is the download progress of the update, and we can set the label with the downloading percentage. So this is gonna be 0 to 100. And that's the entire function when I minimize it. Now we're actually not using the BC state, but we can actually disable the button maybe with a modifier. This is actually a component, so I'm not going to disable it for now. Just hit save like that. And now the next time that I press this, we should be able to see like a loading state, hopefully. Yep, checking, and then the update failed. Okay, let's check the error. Now I'm getting this error because it says that it needs a valid deployment key. I actually had a little issue. I copied the wrong deployment key. So the deployment key needs to be the actual value that you have here. If you do the same that I did, which is copy unique ID, that actually it's wrong. You need the deployment key, so just double click this, copy it, and paste it in here. And if you change your app.json, you need to pre-build and recompile the application. Okay, but this means that now we have the setup complete. If I check for updates, I get the alert telling me that we're up to date. That is great. Now, something very important here. This change actually required a native change, right? Because we implemented the new CodePush package, which includes the plugin, which injects a custom native code for iOS and Android. This means that before we can actually start deploying updates, we need to release this version, and this version needs to go through the App Store review process. So to release this version, I'm going to increase the version. So right now for my application, the latest version is 1.5.2. So let's increase this to be 1.5.3. Now I'm going to recompile, release the version to TestFlight, and then we can start sending updates. I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I have deployed my application. It is now in TestFlight. You can see it here, 1.5.3. This is the latest version and the build that actually goes through the App Store so that we can support over-the-air updates. And this is the application that we need to deploy, and this is going to be the version that we're going to target when deploying updates as well. Okay, so let's go back to my application here on the right. I'm inside TestFlight. I'm going to refresh. And now I can see here the latest version. So I'm going to install it like it was from the App Store, right? Like any other user. I'm going to open this for the first time. This is how it looks. I'm not going to allow this and just sign in. This is the regular flow of the application. We are inside the app. This is, by the way, this is not depending on the server. The server is not running. I'm just going to close the terminal. Scroll all the way down and check for updates. We are up to date. That's cool. All right, so now this is the fun part. Now let's actually send an update. So to send an update, we can actually just go to here and make an update on the JavaScript code, right? Remember that we can only send updates for the JavaScript code. So to show you, as you can see here, my application uses yellow as the primary color. This is the system yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to be system mint. And this is like a blue color that is actually going to affect the entire application. But since this is just a JavaScript change, we can actually send this as an over-the-air update. So once you make your changes in your code base, we can send this by creating the bundle. You can refer to the documentation. If we go back to the docs on creating and releasing a CodePush update, we basically need all this information in the setup that we just created. But if we keep scrolling down, we get to the part where we create an update bundle. By the way, everything that I'm showing you today, I'm going to be using the website to deploy it, but everything it's actually possible to do fully automated through the CI/CD pipeline and using an API as well. So you can create your own custom automation. You can even use Bitrise CI/CD builds, cache, and everything. This is just the update, but it's actually pretty cool because it's pretty flexible. You can start adopting Bitrise incrementally if you want to. So this is how you can create the bundle if you're using React Native CLI. Since I'm using Expo, I can just copy this here for iOS. There's one for iOS, there's one for Android. Let's go back, paste it in here. Let's hit enter. And this will generate a folder on the left with the bundle. Now there's a little caveat here in my case because I'm using Expo API routes. My app.json is set to server in the output for web, and importing CodePush was breaking the export since it requires native code that breaks on web. So for web, I created this just fallback that does nothing. And then for native, I'm just abstracting the same configuration. And then this will prevent the app from breaking in the main layout. I'm just importing the with CodePush and then just passing the root layout. So I'm going to try the export again. Okay, and this time it works. Now on the left, you're gonna find this build folder with the main.js bundle. This is what we want to send as an over-the-air update. Now let's go back to the documentation. The next thing that we need to do is actually create a zip for the build folder by running this command. And here it is on the left at the very end. That's my zip. So I'm going to open this in the Explorer, and then we can upload this to the Bitrise CodePush server. So let's go to my project here, CodePush. Let's create a new update for the production channel. This is actually what I'm using. This is the deployment that I want to target. So let's create a new update. Now this is important. You need to set the version that we want to target, because it's very important that the bundle that we're shipping, it's compatible with the native part of the application. If you ship a bundle that is not compatible with the native version, you can break your application, so be careful. Description, I would recommend that you be descriptive, like new primary color, or you can say quick fix. Right? You can also set the update to be mandatory if you want. Now let's actually bring the file. This is my zip. You just need to drag it in here. Another cool thing about CodePush with Bitrise is that you can set a rollout percentage. So if this is a new feature or something that you want to test before making it for all the users, you can set, I don't know, like 10% of the users, and then incrementally deploy it. Since I'm the only one testing this, I'm gonna set this to 100% and then release the update. Okay, and the deployment is ready. We can see the target version. This is the first update. It's not mandatory, and we're good. We sent the update. Now, users in the application should be able to see it. Let me, by the way, just close the app, open it again so that we're on the same page. I'm gonna navigate, everything's still yellow. Let's scroll down, check for updates. Downloading, boom, and it restarted the application. We have a little crash there. Okay guys, so there was a little issue here. When I created the bundle, I actually made a mistake, because since I'm using Expo router, I need to set the entry file to be Expo router entry.js. So by running this command, npx expo export embed, then platform dep false, pretty similar to the first one that I ran, I generated this build folder again, basically, and now I'm going to zip it and create a new update, because the one that I created before doesn't really work. So let's go back to the deployment here. It's gonna be the same version. Okay, so let's bring the new zip file here, release the update. I'm gonna leave everything else as it is. Okay, cool. So this is gonna be version 4 of my update, same target version. Let's go back to the application. I'm going to install clean, fresh, the app from scratch, and let's open it. I'm gonna sign in. Okay, it's yellow. Let's go back to the profile and check for updates. All right, and it restarted the application, applied the new update. Now we can see the new primary color, and it's of course changing the entire application, which looks really cool. Now, let's say that, we made a mistake. We didn't want to use this color. You can actually always roll back the update, or you can just send a new one. So let's say that we want to use system red just for fun. So let's go ahead and create a new export, and then go back and create a new update. You can do this all day long. So this is gonna be the same 153. This is gonna be red. Let's bring the update from the zip file and send it. Of course, you gotta be careful with this, especially if you are doing this for production users. There we go. So this is version 5. And if I go back to the application, still mint color. Let's check for updates. All right, it's reloading and now it's red. How cool is that? And I still have the same image here that I was working on. This is pretty cool. And this is how you can actually send updates with ease. I mean, imagine having to wait a couple days for Apple review just because I wanted to change the color, or because I wanted to fix a typo, or just add a new banner announcing a new promo, for example. This is just a game changer, and updates definitely are one of the things that you might don't want to use, but definitely once you are in a bad situation with a bug that is losing you money, definitely having the ability to just export the bundle, sending it, is just a massive advantage. Now let's say that I don't want this red color. When I go to my updates and delete this update directly here, then go back to the application. Of course, this is gonna still work. But if I check for updates button, this is actually gonna just roll back to the previous update, and now we have the mint color. Okay, so just as a recap, This setup was just one time, just having to install and set up everything is just one time thing. And then after that, you can send JavaScript changes, fixes, styling, small features, ship straight to the users in minutes. Just remember that one rule. If you add something native, a package, permission, you need to send the build through the store, go through the review process, and that's true for both iOS and Android. Huge thanks to Bitrise for sponsoring this video. Definitely take advantage of the promo code. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.